hid that. Sick. I never hid that. You're sick.
Every word out of her mouth was a lie.
No one knew this.
Honestly, did Bravo know?
No.
She's saying that she production knew.
The day of the finale, they were very much like, that was one of the first things they said to me. Like, did you know?
Who do you think at production knew?
The first time I interviewed, I talked about it in my home with production.
You told them in casting?
Yeah, the first time.
I had a greater reaction to Monica saying to me that production knew.
If you said, I run a burner account, we wouldn't have cast you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Heather Gay from The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Hi, I'm Lisa Shannon. I'm the SVP of Programming and Development for Shed Media and an executive producer on The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
I'm Andy Cohen, executive producer of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and host and executive producer of Real Housewives Reunions.
I'm Lori Gordon. I'm the executive producer and showrunner of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
And this is Variety's Making a Scene.
When I woke up the last day in Bermuda, I was exhausted. I'd had a horrible fight with Whitney the night before. I had barricaded myself in my room. I didn't want to fight anymore. I didn't want to drink anymore. I just wanted to go home. But I knew we had this beautiful finale dinner planned. I had them pack all of the handkerchief dolls. I wanted to have this nice little button on our season, kind of reflect back to our better days of churning butter and making dolls together and end on a high note. But I was tired. I was ready to go home. And I hear her on the phone because she was still mic'd.
Are you kidding me right now? Shut the up.
She was like having some sort of like heated conversation, which you hear in the cold open or hear in that scene. And then I waved to the camera guy to pick up the camera, go, like, we gotta go, you know? And I thought that she would be fine, but when we got in, she obviously was not happy. She had received a phone call, which she wasn't comfortable saying the name, and we were not at liberty to say, but she had somebody, after Tanisha gave her some information, started sending her stuff. Heather had made a phone call to a contact that she had to verify some things for her, and that call happened to come in that day. Thank God. Tanisha told me on the phone, there's something you need to know. Monica is reality Von Teese. It was that simple of a sentence. My stomach dropped and everything kind of came into play. It just was revelatory, but I didn't know what to do with it. Social media has never been a part of storyline. We are not encouraged to talk about what we see online. We try to keep it on the field. We try to, just talk about what happens amongst us. I didn't even know if production was gonna listen to me. So I called our showrunner, Lori Gordon sat with me and I told her, and she didn't really understand what that meant. I was like, okay, let's walk me through this. Like, what the hell is reality Von Teese? I explained that Meredith, Lisa, and Whitney would know exactly what it meant. And they were the first ones I wanted to tell. So they set it up so that I would tell them on the beach right before the dinner. It had to be like the right timing. It wasn't gonna be like she was gonna bust through the door and, start, yelling at Monica. She wanted to talk to the women and she wanted to tell them what she had learned. I think she also wanted to see what they thought, what their reaction would be. Is it as meaningful to them as it was to her? So we wanted to make sure to give her that opportunity privately with the women, obviously cover it. I didn't even know what to do. I just felt like I had this information. It really was a divided road for me. Like, do I want to swallow this information, that it's all part of the job, and just swallow it and talk about it later? Or do I want to honor how I feel right now and my personal boundaries and say, not today? When Lisa approached me on the beach, I think she started crying before I even spoke because she could feel the tension. Because I was sitting out there on that beach waiting for everyone to come down and meet me. And as I sat there, I was getting more and more worked up and more anxious and filled with self-doubt. Like, what if I say Monica's reality Von Teese and they're like, so? And Lisa's like, yeah, she took down Jen. Or I didn't know if we had never discussed it amongst ourselves, the effect that reality Von Teese had on us, but I was banking on the fact that they would know exactly who it was and they would have the same feeling I had.
When you see the four of them on the beach and she says, we've been through a lot, I think in that moment you see a level of sisterhood that is the kind of sisterhood that I love seeing on the Housewives. I love it when they find their common ground and when they come together.
I knew exactly how it would play in post because it was exactly how Heather, how it came to Heather's mind. When Heather found this all out, she was flooded with memories of Monica, things she had said, things that she had done, things that threw her off, that she was like, I don't know, can I trust this person? I think I like her. And I knew editorially we'd have to do that. We would have to do that in the finale. We would flash to the beach scene at the dinner, and we would go through all the memories that Heather had that she articulated to me, and there were more, but we couldn't play all of them. But like we wanted to hit those things. So the viewer felt along with Heather how she felt learning this information and processing it in her brain. And that's literally just how it was done.
And I can't tell you how bonding it was for us to just have that moment together as friends and to all have the same experience and the same reaction, and for them without question to say, we have your back. I mean, that has not happened in 4 years of me being friends with Lisa Barlow. For her, without hesitation, to just say, I have your back. Once I knew that I was going to be able to confront Monica at dinner, there wasn't a minute that I was getting ready that I wasn't rehearsing in my mind. What am I going to say? How am I going to say this? What am I upset about? How is this going to go down? I was doubting myself the whole time I was getting ready for the finale dinner. I just was doubting that I would be able to have the courage to do it, that I'd have the right words, that I'd be able to say it the right way, and that she would admit it. And so I just was going over kind of like reassuring myself that I had the receipts, I had the proof, this was proven, this was confirmed. I didn't need to doubt. I just needed to speak my truth and draw a line in the sand.
I thought her entire speech was epic, honestly. I mean, I didn't know that would be, as widely loved as it was, but, in editorially, we hit it with the boom, so that did help.
Receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, everything to prove that you are a bully and a troll, and you do not deserve to be at this table.
Monica came up with the formula. I asked Monica, how in the world did you craft this so that we all are doubting our friend of years, Meredith Marks, who barely doesn't even drive, let alone DM people, and we're now accusing her. And so when Monica said the formula was receipts, DMs, screenshots, that just hit me hard. It had nothing to do with the truth. It had nothing to do with her wanting to clear her name or Meredith. It was just, this is the game. And I thought, well, I've got all of that on you. And in that moment, it was like receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots, fucking everything to prove that you are a bully and a troll. And she was.
That level of emotion that Heather had was so raw and real, and it fueled her soliloquy in the wind with the drama and the table and the women reacting. I mean, and beautiful soundtrack. The folks that do the music on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City are worthy of their own Emmy. And that finale was so brilliantly scored and dramatically scored.
That is bullshit! That was never my f***ing account! You're done!
I wasn't sure when we confronted Monica about being reality Von Teased if she was going to put her head in her hands and cry and say, I'm so glad the secret's out. I'm so sorry. I was obsessed with you guys, and now I'm here. Will you please forgive me? She did all of the same tactics that we had seen time and again with her former boss.
I didn't do Monica!
What did you do with the account?
There were a few moments where I just sat there completely calm, watching the chaos that she was kind of creating in order to take away from the fact that we had just exposed her. And that's when I was like, she can't be here amongst us because she's refusing to be accountable for what she's done. Production told us that she had been taken to a hotel and that she was on a separate flight home.
These women hadn't seen each other in a really long time. They kind of crossed paths barely, right, at BravoCon, but they really hadn't interacted.
I had a conversation with Heather, Lisa, Meredith, and Angie and Whitney before the Bravos at BravoCon, in which they expressed how upset they were. It was the first time I had seen them as a group, probably since the last reunion, and they expressed how shaken up they were mentally by this and why this mattered to them so much. And so hearing them that night, I also wanted to make sure that they were able to express that because it was important to their story and why they were so emotional about it.
I can't say that I was looking forward to seeing Monica at reunion, but I wasn't afraid to face her. I was just anxious. I had a lot of anxiety about what she was going to say and how she was going to explain it away.
You see it in the footage in episode 1 when she comes down the staircase and she gets into the studio. You could feel the tension.
It felt incumbent on Heather and the ladies to come to the reunion with the evidence of what had upset them and how they were affected by it.
We had been taping the reunion for probably, I think the full taping was probably around 9 or 10 hours. And we didn't get to Reality Von Tease until about hour 6, 7, possibly. We had to address everything that had happened in the season up to that point. And really, everything that had happened with Monica up to that season, in my perspective, was null and void because every word out of her mouth was a lie. It was a curated, cultivated persona that she had crafted after watching decades of Housewives shows and tracking our every single move.
And that always happens with any reunion, whatever the elephant in the room is or the big story point, piece of contention, that always does come up early on. And it's always like, we'll get to it because we have the package, of course, and all of the questions prepared. And that's something that we want to do at the end because we know that it's going to be explosive. We know that that's something that the ladies really need to like work up to and warm up to. And especially with Monica being a newbie, and this was her first reunion, we wanted her to really, again, have the space to talk about all of the other things that happened during the season. You know, she had an incredible season of her own personal story and her mom, and there was a lot to get through before the Reality Von Tease of it all.
When the Burn book came out, I thought, wow.
We were like holding our breath in the control room, like, oh God.
It certainly was a FU to the other women. She said she kind of meant it as a joke and that it really told the whole story.
What is the purpose of this book? Because it starts out as a joke. You make
It's a joke. Yes,
you make a
but then
joke of the
towards
mean
the
book. But
end-
now what I'm seeing
Yes,
is
I thought Heather got ahead of it by explaining why it actually wasn't iconic.
She thought that was going to land like some iconic housewife move, that she was going to be canonized for being so clever, for being, you know, the mean girl that had trolled us and kept a burn book of it. And it just showed me how stunted her personality was and how dangerous that was to be amongst us. This was not a television show. This was our actual lives. And I have known these women for years. And for her to come in and think that she can hack all of our issues, attack all of our vulnerabilities, and then craft a book and be heralded as some sort of housewife queen, it just said everything I needed to know about her intentions, and about the persona that she was trying to project onto the world.
I'm not sure that it ever crossed the finish line in terms of the point that she wanted to make. And I have to assume that there was a greater point to it, but I'm not sure she was able to land that one.
Monica has a very good sense of humor, but there's a lot that misses with the rest of the ladies. And so I think this was a miss, and it just didn't land in the way that she was hoping it to land. It was funny, and she had a lot of the pages were comedic, but it was tone deaf and too far gone because they were so hurt by what had happened, and she was trying to bring levity to it. It just was in the wrong way.
tell me how it's helpful blasting out into the world things
How is it
about them
helpful?
that is horrible.
What if we retweeted everything
How's
your mom
that-
said about you?
When Twitter or Instagram or online trolling becomes part of storylines, I never have enjoyed this side aspect of what happens on The Housewives. And I was just hoping that I was going to like it. And I obviously didn't like it. I loved it. So I also love being proved wrong.
It definitely felt good to kind of share how much the trolling and bullying had affected us, because I think a lot of people that become public figures would admit that it's the worst part of the job. You're subjected to just incessant observations and criticisms about your life and your physical appearance, all of the things. But it's hard really to communicate how damaging that can be when it's from someone who's on the same game board as you. And it felt good to finally have Andy sit on that stage and back all of us up and to agree that it was abominable behavior and to not congratulate her on being a mean girl.
It sounds like in trying to expose Jen, what you did was hurt all of them.
It felt like a righting of the ship, and it felt like we were supported by Andy on the stage. So that felt really satisfying to me personally.
But you also have to understand it was very confusing, and it just sounded so odd.
There are a lot of hurtful things that Reality Von Tease said about me and said about all of us, but they were really just base insults, like calling me the T slur, calling me Shrek, calling me Manatee, making fun of my house, making fun of my outfits, making fun of my appearance, making fun of my friendships. It would track my every move. If I unfollowed someone, she would announce it on her pet page. She would announce if my followers were going up. She just kept constant, relentless track of every aspect of our lives. And it wasn't just the level of hurt from the insults, it was the relentless, obsessive pursuit to stay on our radar and then to meet us and pretend that she's meeting us for the first time, that she doesn't know my kids' names, she doesn't know their age, she doesn't know what car I drive, she doesn't know where I live. Those were all lies. It was the deception. She'd been amongst us for that entire time and never revealed that she knew everything about us. It was really the constant deception and the relentless obsession. She had months and months to clean up this account, but she couldn't because it was her trophy and she was proud of it. And she continued to tweet and taunt us while we were actively filming.
Stakeout, hey! We got our binoculars, bitch. I'm in disguise, driving by Jen's house.
It's always shocking to see evidence when somebody says something, especially like captured like that. It was definitely shocking to hear it and to see it. And I think more so than anything, if you remember at the finale, Monica, the women said to her, even Heather was like, you've stalked Jen, we've got videos. And she's like, I would never do that. And you believe her, and that's a little frightening.
She never stalked you guys. Why do you care if she drove by Jen's house? Like, what do you care?
The capability it would take for a human being to befriend someone as a fan, to beg to work for them, to then to get the chance to work for them, then to infiltrate.
When Lisa and I talked to Andy about if production had known, if Bravo and production had known who Reality Von Tease was and effectively planted her in order to create drama, it felt really satisfying to have Andy look us in the eyes and tell us that they did not know and that they never would have hired her had they known. We never could have changed the trajectory of that trip, of that finale dinner, had Monica been a plant, because she would have been protected from it.
No one knew this at
Honestly, did Bravo know?
No.
She's saying that production knew.
I had a greater reaction to Monica saying to me that production knew.
The first time I interviewed, I talked about it in my home with production. That this was their plan.
You told them in casting?
Yeah, the first time.
If you said, I run a burner account, we wouldn't have cast you.
Okay.
We obviously knew that she had worked for Jen Shah, that she had turned on Jen Shah, and we obviously thought that that was interesting and noteworthy.
If we would have known about Reality Von Tease, we would have planted seeds earlier on in the episode so that it would have paid off and made much more sense when you found out who and what it was. So Lori called me and she's like, hey, there's this, big thing that Heather has uncovered. Monica is Reality Von Tease. And I was like, what is, I don't know what that is.
Someone who was secretly running this account about the show. It's the ultimate fourth wall break, isn't it?
Our big concern was that, is this going to matter for viewers? Like, it's great in hindsight, right? It was an amazing finale. But we did not know that as it was even uncovered. Like, we didn't know that this was going to even matter to the women in the way that it did. The notion that we always knew is it's very Monday morning quarterback, because we didn't even know that this was going to make sense once the episode came together. We were very nervous that it was going to land with audiences in as big of an impact as it landed with the ladies.
The day of the finale, they were very much like, that was one of the first things they said to me. Like, did you know? You know what I mean? And no, We didn't. We really didn't. And I think it wasn't really offensive or hurtful. I feel like it was kind of like I would ask the same question.
The same thing, yeah.
100%.
The number one thing that Lori and I have, you have to have the trust of your cast. And we would never jeopardize the trust of the cast, nor would the network, nor would Andy, especially over something so seemingly silly and not knowing that it's going to pay off. We just would never do that, especially with the entire cast. I mean, you're really blowing up your relationship with everybody.
It would have been a very different show.
A very different show. And for us, the worst thing that can happen is a housewife who is one and done. Like, from a business standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, we have invested a lot in any housewife on their first season. And so you want it to be very obvious to bring them back. And when it's not, it's a problem. So, we loved all of the great inroads that Monica was making with the cast and her birthday party and all of that. So had we known, we probably would have encouraged her much earlier on to have a come to Jesus with the ladies, to really say, like, hey, this is something I did in my past. We've helped her explain why. And knowing how she is better one-on-one, probably done that slowly through the group.
A lot of reality Von Tease was fixated on the black eye. And I don't know how to say other than, like, I was scared.
What I made of Heather saying how fearful she was of Jen Shah, it actually dawned on me as I was sitting there, and you kind of see me realize it, that being scared of her, it was something that she and Monica had in common. And it drove both of them to do things that were potentially out of character for them. I thought that was really interesting. She seemed to have a hold on all of the women. You saw Meredith go from kind of gloating in the bathtub and having a lot of proof on the day that Jen got, was initially arrested, to really having no opinion on it. And you see me kind of getting angry at Meredith at the last reunion saying, are you not upset by this?
I think Andy handled it perfectly. Obviously the segment was in the script, but we feel like he handled it perfectly in terms of, like, giving her the opportunity to speak, which she perhaps had been trying to say for the past year, but never had the nerve to say it, but also being careful because it's Heather's word, right? This is what Heather's saying. Jen, unfortunately, is in prison and can't speak for herself at this current time. So I think it was kind of just being careful with, like, giving her an opportunity to say her truth, but also not being judgmental in terms of this is definitely what happened, As you can see in the reunion, Heather was really emotional, even just talking about it. She was crying, and she's really... she's a different person, and I think her saying those words out loud at the dinner and the finale, and then saying them out loud at the reunion, and knowing how many people are going to see that was a lot for her, and not having the recollection or the memory of how it happened, but knowing that it happened, and having the footage in Heather's words to quote unquote like support what she's saying was a big thing.
I was terrified going into reunion of how Andy was going to grill me, because I knew that this was something that had really been, no pun intended, a black eye on me, on the network, on production. It was something that had to be addressed. And I was anticipating having to be accountable and answer for a lot of my behavior. And that was, of course, terrifying. I didn't want to answer to Zaddy Andy. But I don't want to make light of it. I was really nervous going into reunion because no one wants to face their mistakes, and certainly not in a public arena.
There was a big connection between learning this information about Monica, exposing Monica, confronting Monica, and tying that in with her experience with Jen. She expressed to me that she tied the two things together. Like, I've been through this with Jen. I'm not going to do it again with someone else that I can't trust.
I think that's a big thing that some viewers are missing, is that a lot of them are saying, they really turned a blind eye to Jen and all of the horrible things that she did, but, Monica posted on a burner account and they're crucifying her for it. And it's much bigger than that. These women were really, they went through something with Jen for a very long time. And I think it happening again, albeit different, but the deception of it all, and thinking that you have a friend who is honest with you and it turns out that she's not, that's really the fundamental problem here. It's being lied to, and that was their trigger, that they just couldn't do it again.
Me asking Heather to speak to Jen was something that I thought of in that moment, and it was, I was sitting there thinking, well, surely she's going to see this. And it seemed like a great opportunity. Not only it's very dramatic and we're making a television show, but it seemed important to me in that moment because it reminded me of Dorinda Medley's famous quote, say it, forget it, write it, regret it. So it was an opportunity for her to say it and forget it. And I really also meant it after she said it, and she was very upset.
It felt like an exclamation point on all of the kind of progress I've made in the past year and a half. I feel like I'm a completely different person now. I think that's what enabled me to confront Monica. That's what gave me the boundaries that forced me to say, I'm not going to take this type of friendship in my life anymore. And it really was a nice way for me to finally have a voice, because I was so dedicated to just being a good friend, because it felt insurmountable, the things she was facing. I was too deep in it for so long, so it felt great to kind of finally pull my head above water and for Andy to give me the opportunity to address her directly. And had she been on the reunion couch, I would have said the same thing. And that felt really good to me, that it wasn't just that she was in prison. It wasn't just that I was safe now. It was that I was a different person now, and I had boundaries now that I didn't have before.
I was surprised that Monica didn't seem to understand why the women were upset. A lot of what upset the other women were things that Reality Von Teese, that didn't originate with Reality Von Teese, but that Reality Von Teese perpetuated and shared and tagged them in.
I kept waiting for Monica to tell her side and to have a defense and to explain why she did this. And even if she had just said, I was obsessed with Housewives since I was a little girl and it was all I ever wanted, she couldn't even say that. She couldn't own one part of her role in it. I feel like even after having months of reflection, Monica couldn't come up with a good excuse for her behavior, because there absolutely was none.
Monica is getting a lot of love online, and she's getting a lot of questions online. And so I would be interested to hear her perspective now about what it feels like to be on the other end of that.
I think she had grand plans for like all the things. I mean, you see it in the finale, like her last words in an interview is like, just wait. There's a lot to be said. And I think we were all waiting, like, okay, what's going to be said? And I think maybe for her, in her head, what seemed to make sense as to why she did it, why she created it, and her thinking behind it wasn't really resonating with the women and didn't make them feel much better.
When we shot the reunion, the finale hadn't aired. So, a lot of viewer feedback that, the reunion is typically driven by viewer feedback. The viewers hadn't reacted yet. And they reacted very strongly to this, to the finale and to the revelation. So I actually think there's a purity in just hearing from the women on this topic at the reunion. And it was a huge opportunity for Monica to go in there and win some of the women back. And I'm not sure she did, although I hear a few of them have started following her on Instagram again.
I kind of thought that you would say, the gig is up, I'm sorry, and I wanted to be here so badly that I did all of this, but you didn't.
In terms of the decision to bring Monica back, what I love about reunions is it's like the Housewives court of law.
The whole franchise is based on friends and people who know each other and circulate in the same circles. And at this time, the women just need like a cooling off period. It's too soon for them to re-enter into a friendship with that, a trusting friendship. Not enough time has passed.
Yeah, I think it's too soon. I mean, we're starting to film relatively soon, and I think that everyone needs a minute.
Monica has no connection with any of us right now. There's no chance that she will be in my home, in my business, or around me anytime soon. That's all I can say for now.
This is top 10 Housewives episodes of all time. Put it up there. And by the way, I'd put that Sprinter van Jen Shaw arrest episode right up there too. So now 2 of them are Salt Lake City. That's pop culture canon right there. And this is in it.
I wish I'd been able to say to her, you missed out on a village of women here, a village of women that would have supported you and got you through all of these trials that you're having. But instead, you know, you shit on all of us, and you shit on this job, and you shit on the legacy that is Housewives.